I have a very similar conversation with a lot of different people. It's a common theme. They all want to know, is damage to their ears going to be a problem? And is it something that other people experience? This is actually a very tight-lipped thing in the music community. It's not something people talk about a lot. And there's a stigma with the fact that if you have any sort of hearing damage or hearing loss, that you are not somebody who can mix or master. It's assumed that you're deaf once you have a little bit of hearing loss. This could not be further from the truth. This is completely misguided, because so much of what we do when we're mixing is mental. So much. Producing, mixing, mastering, it's all kind of the same thing. If your mind isn't right, if you're thinking you're not good enough, you're never going to be good enough. Pure Mix Mentors, Andrew talks to awesome people, and this is him, Chad Blake, two other people, I forget their names, but also Giles Martin. So let's check this out. Fair use, everybody keep in mind, fair use for teaching purposes.
So the reason I wanted to say all this is because if you go get your hearing tested, like I did about 6 weeks ago, you'll find out that perhaps something's wrong. Like in my right ear, I've got a big dip at 6.5K. That has very little to do with your ability to work on music, make records, mix records, have conversations, be with people, go to concerts, because that is just a measurement of a little bit of the raw data collection that might be a problem. But there is so much more to the hearing system that can overcome these things and work around them and make them insignificant to the point of them not even really necessarily existing.
Let's just put together what he's saying. Andrew Sheps, one of the most amazing mix engineers that there's ever been, the dude has a dip at 6.5K. That means he's got some loss there. This is not affecting what he's doing. And there's several reasons for this. Allow me to sum them up real quick. The brain does something very amazing. It fills in the gaps. In other words, if there's something there that you can't hear, this may actually improve your ability to mix. This is going to make you slightly pivot possibly on what you're doing, but your brain will be filling in that gap. So it's not like you can't hear in that section. Well, your brain is going to compensate in some way that'll make your hearing experience different than someone else's. Now that could be a positive. It doesn't have to be a negative. And as you go through this video, if you do decide to watch this whole thing, you'll notice there's a common theme here. Chad Blake also discusses how he's got one of his ears has significantly less level than the other one. And it's not an always thing. Just the ear is basically a pressure canal. And as the air pressure changes, because it's not a fixed system, because it's like they're a floating membrane, if you will, sort of. And I'm really summing this up for, in the layman's terms, because I'm not as smart as these people on this panel. But I understand the concept. The concept is the air allows it to move freely. And because there's that air in there allowing it to move freely, it adjusts. And some days when the pressure, the barometer, the different things that affect pressure in the air will make some days slightly worse than others. So Chad Blake actually talks about his workaround methods. And he doesn't have to do these anymore because your brain actually will start to sort of relearn how to work based on the damage that you've incurred. So what he mentions is he'll flip his speakers sometimes because one ear hears a little less than the other. So sometimes he flips the speakers from the right goes to the left goes to the right, and that allows him to make sure the balance is what it needs to be. But also not the same every day. He notices some days certain things are worse than others, which may cause certain frequency buildup and in areas that aren't there on other days. So what he'll do is over the course of like 3-4 days, he mentions, he'll mix like 3 songs. And that the whole time, like he'll keep going back and forth between 3 different songs over that course of time, which will allow him to basically work on separate days and let his ears do what they're gonna do on all those different days, and that allows him to sort of make it happen where not one day, if it's bad in some area, he's not gonna have that song be bad. In other words, he's working on 3 songs on that day with the weird area happening in his hearing, and then on another day, it's a different area, or it's not there, and then he's still working on the same 3 songs, you know what I'm saying? And another day, that's how he works around. Between that and the flipping of the speakers, he could get amazing work done, obviously, because the dude is amazing. So let's just understand this. these are two people talking about this. Then Giles Martin comes, and these are not just any two people, right? These are the guys. Then you get Giles Martin coming through. Giles Martin comes on talking about his father, George Martin, the amazing man who produced the Beatles and made them sound as amazing. He's the fifth Beatle. Everybody knows he's the fifth Beatle, right? So bottom line, George Martin, he was so aware of his hearing loss and not willing to share it with the public. And because of that, he grew his hair long. He used to wear hearing aids in both ears. So I want everyone to know this is not something that is going to prevent you from doing anything. The brain will find a way to make it work. And you, somebody who may have slight damage in one ear, maybe, it could be anything. Maybe something happened and damaged one side of your ear, not the other. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just take the precautions. In other words, if you're going to be around loud music and you're in a band, let's say, wear earplugs. When I played in bands, and it wasn't even that long ago, I used to do earplugs in the ears, and I used to wear like in-ear monitors, but like I'd plug in big headphones. Yeah, maybe they looked a little ridiculous, but I don't care. I'm protecting my hearing, because when I leave that show, I'm coming home and I'm mixing. I've been doing this for a long time, and the bottom line is, it was more important to me to protect my hearing than what I looked like on stage. I don't care what I look like. Who cares about that? I care about protecting my hearing. You understand? So in my opinion, there's certain things you do, like when you go to concerts, if you're around loud music, that huge amount of loud, high-frequency noise, when you leave and now your ears are ringing, you do not want that. You want to protect your ears if this is something you're going to do for your career. And you don't care what anybody says about wearing earplugs or anything. You wear them anyway. They can scratch with that. That's how I look at it. You know what I'm saying? Go scratch. These guys, you got to put in stuff to protect yourself. At all costs, it's worth it, because you don't want to be somebody who's basically taking your hi-fi system in your ears and dimming it out quicker than it has to be, because as we get older, these things happen kind of naturally. But like I said, the brain finds a way. That's why the music industry itself, it's now an older industry than it was years back. And now we know way more than we used to know. And people didn't know that mixing at super loud volumes is going to damage their ear. They didn't know that going to concerts with stuff blasting is going to damage their ears. Now they do. And now that you know this stuff, you really should look at things different. You got to protect yourself. Anytime I go see a band play, I rock the earplugs. Anytime I go to a club or a place that I know is going to have loud music, I rock the earplugs, because I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what I look like. I care what it sounds like when I leave there. I don't want the ringing. So if you guys look at it this way, you'd be way, way, way ahead of the game. Also, one of the people on this panel mentioned something amazing. If you have, for whatever reason, real significant hearing loss, and Andrew Sheps doesn't rock a hearing aid or anything, so I'm not saying you need that, and I'm pretty sure Chad Blake doesn't either. But my point is, she mentions something that was, I thought, very interesting. She said, if that starts to happen where you're experiencing severe hearing loss, there's modern hearing aid technology around now that will actually start, when you put that in, it stimulates the neural cortex. She's using a bunch of awesome words. She's talking about it stimulates the brain to then create more neurons and neural activity to make your ear work again in a way that it wouldn't if you just lived with it. In other words, just living with severe hearing loss will actually make your brain repurpose resources to other places in order to conserve energy. Your brain's is very happy to do that. And that's something that you actually don't want. You want it to be able to be like, oh, we're still working over here, so we need to make things work. So we need to fire and we need to send neurons. Whereas if you just accept the fact that you can't hear in one ear, your brain's going to stop making that work. It's going to stop firing the neurons to this area and make it not so good. So the bottom line here is it doesn't hurt to go get your ears checked. It doesn't hurt to figure out, where you're at. But it also, if it's not so bad where you're fine, it's fine. But if you start to notice there's severe loss, you got to get that handled, because it will start to stimulate and bring back things that you may not have had before. And your hearing will get better over time. This is obviously, when was this? This is 3 years ago. And this is all based on new research, is what they're talking about. And that's why I recommend this panel. It's 3 hours and 54 minutes. I understand attention spans aren't going to allow for that for some people. But I'm the kind of person that this thing is hugely important. And I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation. So even though there's maybe a stigma that you need perfect hearing, Giles Martin comes on talking about how many mix engineers he knows, and he doesn't mention any names, but he's like, you don't have any idea how many I talk to who all have hearing loss, all have hearing issues with their ears, and it doesn't stop them from making amazing mixes. You take that with you, and you realize that it don't matter. It's not an excuse. You'll be fine, but mix at a low volume. Mix where you have a chance at not hurting your ears more. This is all reasons why it doesn't make any sense to mix loud, and it doesn't make any sense to put your ears in a position where you're actually damaging what's going on, okay? It doesn't make any sense. And there's also something fascinating within this where they talk about how just they talk about how the brain and what you can do with mixing is actually you'll get a better sounding mix the more happy and positive you are. In other words, if you can make yourself if you think to yourself, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that, you're actually going to be bringing down the level of what your ears are capable of hearing. You're going to be bringing down the level of the clarity. It's an amazing thing. They mention it in this panel. You have to watch it if you want. But the bottom line, if you can bring to the table an attitude where you love what you're doing and you're happy and you don't let that negativity get to you, and when people start angering you, you let it go. Because that anger, all that's going to do, all anger is, I love this quote, I don't remember where I heard it, but all anger is emotional punishment that we give ourselves for other people's behavior. You don't let that happen. You don't let anybody affect you in that way, and it will be better on your mixes. We're all human. Sometimes we let these things in, but do your best to shed that. Focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative. It will hurt what you're doing. It'll hurt your mix. It'll hurt everything because you won't hear as well. These things help. As soon as there was some study done where they played music for people who were enjoying what they did, and there was significantly less hearing loss at like the same volume for people who weren't enjoying what they were doing and were miserable listening to stuff of the same volume. The amount of hearing loss, your ears protect you when you're positive, when you're in a good mood, when you're looking at things like that, when you're looking at things negatively, when you're angry, when you're upset. Your ears don't protect you. So you got to realize that this stuff's around. This is all part of mixing. What we bring to the table when we sit down at the desk before we turn the knobs makes a difference to the sound. You have to realize this. If you do realize this, do me a favor. Throw it in the comments section if you dug the video. Hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tons more to come. My name's Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. See you guys soon. You guys got this. Take it easy.